hemor. To hanta homax la hanta la kolia wogalake. Ko chankele na kus wasitja uns bemit in han. Hol hela no wasitja sna wogalake lo. Hoale ui mai raaktaski as wasitja ongelako. Hoale trokahjachti le pertukile bloketu elon kumpe. Hona wanetu ja piki he wanetu kektopoinre wiktemna some zapta. Lakota year 10,005. Hoale pertukile he. Hohe chai wanetu ja ki he dilai han he wanetu ja pi. Na le chala 2005 ja hele chala he. Recent he le chala ki he.
My Lakota name is Oyate Pte, which means Morning Star Woman. And my Christian name is Frida Holybull Condit. And I'm come from the Tioshpai Mazanapi. And the band I come from is Hochwoju. Today is known as Manikoju.
My name is Mona Bria White Eyes, that was my maiden name. And my family on one side was from all along the river. They were the Minnequoshu, and that's where my family on both sides. My mother was Minnequoshu, and my dad too. His name was White Eyes, and her name was Dupree.
I come from a Tioshpai called Maspegnica, and that's on my father's side, and my mother's side, she's a descendant of the Wounded Knee massacre.
My name is Clementine Debbie Day. I'm from the Mikoju, Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. And my Tioshpaye is Spotted Elk, Sitranka. And my Indian name is Pte Trokahewe.
How Midakapi Lakota Tratranka Yotaka Machapi. And la betu ki wachima pichake le waglake. Daku slea chimpi ke he le waka ki daku slea piki hena le Nagoya piktacha, Oyate Pte o kitra piki, you how money pikte. Hechuk upshni hunters daki ogununi piki. My relatives, my name is Emmanuel Red Bear, and I'm from the Sitting Bull descendant, and I'm the language and cultural preservation officer, along with the traditional culture leader in Cheyenne Butte High School. And also teach the language at the Sitranka University. my disappointment was that only a few elders remember stories of wars and things that happened in the past. And I realized that things have been done to our Lakota elders, like the boarding school and all the things that our elders have gone through. And it's time to have a healing and to move on so that we won't lose the language, we won't lose the culture, we won't lose the history, and we can teach our younger generations that are coming about who we are as a Lakota nation, because today some of our young generations are imitating other cultures, and our language and our culture and our way doesn't mean anything anymore to our people. And it saddens me to know that even in some of our elected officials say that the language isn't important and that they can't use it our students can't use it after they graduate high school. But the identity and who they are is very important. And I want to stress the importance, to keep this language alive, this Lakota way alive today. And that is why I feel that it's important to interview our elders. And those of you that still have your grandparents and your parents, get all the information you can from them, because all that oral history is being lost. It's sad when we have to go to a bookstore and buy something about our own people. It's sad because we have a lot of resources right here on our reservations.
Many years ago, that was before the white people got here. And in those days, like Wounded Knee Massacre, my grandpa, Spotted Elk, Bigfoot they call him. His real name is Spotted Elk, but they call him Sitranka, and then they call him Bigfoot, and cause somebody said that when he was when the federal government got a hold of him, his feet were so long that they gave him a big long shoes, which is not true. But you know how we are.
Okay, from listening to my relatives and my grandparents, the times back then were more peaceful. Probably everything was natural, a natural state. And time, the clock had it wasn't important in our society then, because things were done in a timely manner, I guess, just when they knew when to do things and when to get it done. From what I hear, I always wish I could live in that past, where things were quiet. Serenity, I always think of it that way, just having serenity in our lives without any harsh outside forces, I guess.
But Grandpa, that's on the other side, my dad's side. And all of them, after the dad was telling me that, old man, my grandpa told him that the buffaloes that they live off, just like before the white man came, they use these willows to make their own teepee and buffalo hides to cover it, and that's their clothes.
The old way everyone was working, hard life, men out hunting for food, women gathering the wild fruit and such, and the kids and boys and girls, they gathered wood, light wood, sticks that they can find the creek for fire and hauling water. So everyone worked back in the old days.
And then in the afternoons, if we can, Grandpa will hitch up the team and then we'll go down the river and pick wood for the winter. Always getting prepared, and we pick choke cherries, June berries, turnips, plums, and blueberries, and buffalo berries. We have all that, and my grandma will fix this choke cherry so we can patties and dry them so we can have ojapi in through the winter.
Grandma was a very fair person. She was a very modest person. All of the 7 values that we talk about are, you know, she was all of those. One of them, and I always said there should be 8 because modesty played a big part in Indian life. Through modesty, she said we showed respect to our people, anybody. If you were modest, that was a sign of respect. That is something that is not spoken, can't be spoken, will never be spoken. You either have it or you don't.
There ain't too many that, you know, earn the respect. You know, the Lakota values we talked about, the compassion and honesty and prayer, you know. Lakota way of life was spiritual. Everybody should be able to pray today, but we don't.
My Uncle Louis was kind of kept the Indian singing going. There was a time in this area where there was no singing, no powwows, nothing. And I guess that kind of fit in with the government's plan to assimilate our people into their lifestyle. But Uncle Louis maintained that. I can still hear him singing early in the morning. And he always had a drum, you know. If he didn't have a drum, he'd have some kind of utensil and he'd do that and he would sing.
They broke up into reservations, and our 7 tribes all broke up to their own reservation. And to me, that's just a form of being controlled, controlled environment where they put you in they split you up. I like a divide and conquer tactic. To me, so you know.
I have relatives tell me stories about when our ceremonies were taken away, they were banned, and we even had our own people as Indian police that arrested our people that practiced like the inipi. Mm-hmm. And one of the relatives told me that that's why all the ceremonies are done at night now.
And one area positive would be, like, to me, it would be education. You know, you can learn there's education in both worlds you need to know.
Before they came, it was a matter of survival, living day to day, working hard, and with them coming, I guess life changed too. We had to adjust to a different way of life.
The destructive changes and the negative aspects of them coming, what are just a few in your mind that stand out above the rest?
Language.
Language.
I mentioned that our languages need to be retained, but our languages, we're losing the battle retaining our language. And then that, to me, that's you retain your language and that's who you are.
Well, I used to think that everything was negative after they came, but thinking about it now and talking about it, listening to people talk, and the only thing that I can think of at this time is taking our language away. Mm-hmm. Try to take our language, our spirituality, our belief system away. That I think was destructive to our people, but some of us still maintained that and kept it within us, and we're bringing it back today again. So
if they have been programmed now, the young kids, to speak English only, and that's all they know. Going back to the Lakota language is liberating. For me, it was. Having learned English. For me, 50 years of working at this is prayers. I pray every evening and daybreak in Lakota, as far as I understand the sacred language Lakota, and I pray for understanding. And it comes to me not at that moment, but slowly ideas come to me, and I know that's the help that I ask for.
One of the stories I heard was that when we come from Wind Cave, one of the creation stories, that we come from the buffalo. And I have deep respect for the buffalo. Because of them, we're here, we survived. And I always say that as long as the buffalo are here, Lakota will be alive too.
The buffalo played a major role in being the Pte people that were in tradition or traditional oral stories that the buffalo came out on top of the world first. They're the ones that lived here. And then there's a connection where when the people Lakota came out of the caves, they made a connection with the buffalo where they were one. They survived. They're surviving and helping.
Okay, from the 6 buffalo that my great-grandfather saved and sold, I think that would be nearing the 1920s, and a lot of influence from the white government. I don't like to say white, but from that government were coming in. So they were bringing in cattle, they were bringing in horses, ranchers were coming and they were intermarrying, and so it lessened the need for the buffalo. So it's almost like saying nobody missed the buffalo.
That when the buffalo was gone, there was a way of life that was gone with it, but not all of it. We're still here.
I guess when the buffalo were killed, it was starvation. We know that. And also, we depended on the buffalo for our livelihood, our clothing, our ceremonies, food.
We had a fully employed people back in those days because it was hard life, but it still was good work, and then you get your meals and shelter for that and clothing. Everyone worked back then, but now no work. There's no way you can work when those who have money won't set up jobs here. Corporations or companies, well, they go overseas now, I guess. So we don't have nothing here, not much. So that's the difference. Main difference for me is it was a prosperous, fully employed Lakota society. Now it's poor and really poverty-stricken way of life now.
Tell me what I should know about Wounded Knee from our point of view, not a white man's or an outsider's, we'll say.
That part, I have a hard time talking about it because of because I am from Takini area, Bridger, and all my great-grandparents were killed there. And the one that survived where I come from, on both my mother's side, my father's side, they rather not talk about it.
When they stopped Bigfoot's band over there, and the soldiers came into the camp, and what I understood, when Grandma and Lala would talk about it, they came into the camp and they wanted all the weapons, anything. And they even took the needles or awls that women used to sew stuff. They even took those. Anything, they took those. And then after they confiscated all of those, you know, something happened. There's very different stories, but something happened, and then the soldiers started shooting.
But during that Wounded Knee massacre, my dad was telling me that old man Spotted Elk, he was a peaceful man, and that's who my great-grandpa is. He's killed in Wounded Knee. So they end up it started out from the old man. My grandpa High Hawk told my dad that when they got that morning, when they got him, they took them all surrounded there, and they took all their knives, scissors, axes, and guns, and they're supposed to put them all in the middle and then be peaceful, see. But it went down the line, the man folks, this old man had a blanket over his gun, and he didn't want to give up his gun. So this one soldier guy struggled with him, and my dad said that gun went off, and that's when it all broke loose.
The great-grandpa that was in there, his name was Ghost Horse. Him and his son and their family, they went and hid in a ravine somewhere. And they left, him and his son left again, and he came back by himself, and he told the rest of the family members that his son got killed. So during all that battle where they were hiding, they all cried. And then he came out one more time, and he said he was going back. And after that, he never did come back, and he got killed too. So at that time, great-grandmother, I think she was only like 7 or 8 years old, and she remembered that. And after that, they walked, and they met other survivors along the way, and then they finally made their way to Pine Ridge.
But my grandpa, J.E. High Hawk, my grandpa, Alec High Hawk, and my grandma, their grandma, the High Hawk grandma, and Jonah, them escaped. The rest died over there in Wounded Knee. Spotted Elk died, and Grandpa High Hawk and their wives died over there. It's their mother, the old lady. I got her name. My daughter Darla's got her Indian name. It's Buffalo Pretty Hair Woman. They brought her back with them. That's a grandma.
How they were buried, which is what I was told was that some of our relatives were frozen, but they were still alive, but they were still thrown into that long hole, that grave. And I had a grandma that was stolen from the battlefield when she was like 2 months old or something. I can't remember exactly. I know she was like 9 months old or 8. Lost bird.
My dad, after that, was telling us how it really happened at Wounded Knee, and he got Grandpa John wrote the ledger, and Jim wrote the ledger, and Dad gave it to me. And then I have the original book of Wounded Knee Massacre. So just a few families that got in mistake of getting killed over there.
And that's part of, I guess, our historical trauma.
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of healings that need to be done yet. But just doing my family tree, all the relatives that I lost, in honor of them, I gave all my children and grandchildren their Indian names. And they're carrying those names with respect and honor. And that's the way that we wanted to honor our relatives that were killed there. We can just say killed.
I believe there were several things that I would like to pass on about the Dupree, which I'm sure as you interview other people, it'll probably come up again too, and that's the fact that the Dupree family, Fred Dupree, was credited with saving the buffalo. Now, I don't know if they meant just the buffalo around in the plains area, because in other readings or books that I read, they have buffalo in Canada. Now, you know, somebody evidently saved buffalo up there, or maybe they weren't slaughtered like they were down here. But for the plains area, Fred Dupree's name happened to be mentioned quite a bit. And he had only like 6 buffalo calves and raised them. And then when he passed on, there was a man by the name of Scotty Phillips from the Fort Pierre area that purchased those buffalo from him. And from there they raised, it just grew.
As the Indian populations declined, and so did the buffalo. They're both. But when the Indian population started to come up, the buffalo started to come up too. Because there's that relationship there with the buffalo.
I know one time we were having a powwow and they gave us a buffalo from Cherry Creek, and the men went out to the buffalo range and they picked out a buffalo for them to kill, and so they went in a pickup, and the game fish and parks guy shot the buffalo, and these men were gonna rush out there and get it, and he said, no, wait. And they had to wait 2 hours or more and before they shot the buffalo, because they're trying to get it alone. And they were all over that hill waiting, and they finally shot the buffalo, and they were gonna rush out there, but he said, wait. And my husband was in there, and he told me that when that buffalo went down, all the rest of the buffalo circled that buffalo, and with their head, they're trying to make that buffalo stand up. And they keep circling it, and they all put their heads down and trying to lift that buffalo up. And finally, he said after a while, you know, maybe an hour or so, he didn't know the exact time, but he said it seemed like a long time. They finally, like they were mourning or something, they all moved away from that buffalo. And then they waited some more, and then finally the Game Fish and Parks guy said, see, that's what I want you guys to see.
These social problems like suicide and alcohol and social problems are a result of not knowing our own language, being suppressed. And of course the economic system, that's a life and death issue. Because we don't have jobs, the kids suffer, they're hungry, and they get discouraged. So that's the number one problem for me, the way I think about it, is not treatment center over here along the highway, wellness center it's called. For me, LS in capital letters and the wedge and ADA, the Lakota spirit, is greater than any drug addiction.
The younger generation, you know, don't feel that our Lakota ways are important. You know, they don't know their identity. They don't know who they are. They don't know what band they belong to. They don't know what their Indian names are, or even their grandparents' Indian names. They don't know anything about their culture, They don't know anything about the history. A lot of times what happens is they live off the reservation. They move to get a job or they get educated somewhere. When they leave the reservation and they find somebody else finds out that you're a Lakota, they think that you know your language. They think that you know your identity. They think they know your oral history. You know, they think they know you know everything about yourself as a Lakota person. And they find out that they don't know those things. You know, some of the Lakotas don't even speak their own language, and it's sad.
The buffalo is the main source. The buffaloes coming back. Our languages are making little progress. Our ceremonies are coming back, and eventually we'll have our sacred circle will be back.
Lakota people are spiritual, really spiritual people, and I think that symbolically it will just carry on if we believe that way. And when you believe in something, it's really I know we have true faith in our culture, especially our ceremonies. So I know that they won't die out. Look how long they lasted.
Black Elk. He mentioned that he said a prayer in 1930, well, can't remember now, 32, I believe. He mentioned, he climbed Harney Peak with Chinchilla Shakoe, Seven Sisters mountain one more time. And he made a prayer over there, and that sacred circle wasn't broken. And they said it was broken when the Wounded Knee massacre happened. But he prayed for that to happen, and I think we're there now. Even though that prayer was said 30, 40 years ago, it's just now coming through.
So language is important. You have to almost learn it, not very fluently, but the sacred terms, to practice any of these ceremonies and rituals. The purification, the vision quest, and Sundance.
Just recently, I went to a church. I went to a wedding in Montana. One of my husband's Hunka brother's daughter got married, and we went to a Catholic church. I couldn't believe that when we went to that wedding, there was, on one side, there was where you do holy water, make the sign of the cross, and you go on this side, and there was a smudge. And so, gee, that was something that I just stood, everybody was going in, but I'll stand there looking at them, comparing which one shall I do. And then it just hit me, I'm gonna do both. So, because I grew up that way too, I know all the rituals that the Catholics have, the churches. So I got the holy water, made sign of the cross. I went this way and I smudged myself down. Then I went in. I felt good about it. Because if they accept that now, then I'm gonna go along with them.
I would say they're all, I would say maybe 60-40. 60% are Christians, practicing
Absolutely.
Christians. And I'd say it's going up probably from a small percentage in the Indian religion. And by Indian religion, I mean the pipe and sweats and those things. And that's going up. And strangely enough, it's coming back from college kids. You know, they're coming back and they're embracing that.
That's kind of ironic, isn't it? They would leave to go to college with the intent of learning the outside,
Yeah.
and then it takes them that to realize that, and then they come back.
They come back and then
Some Native American feel that they don't have that chance out, out in college, because they try college and they come home, they can't get it through. And so they come back to the reservation and just live around the reservation when there isn't anything. But I always keep telling my kids and my grandkids that it's your choice. You have to get out there and do what you have to do to find what you want to do with your life.
They had a class, and they had they talked about the pipe, and then they talked about who the keeper was. Okay, and so they told them that's in the Greengrass, Cheyenne River Reservation, and so they took that the class, and then the class was there. Then the pipe keeper, Mr. Lookenhorst, Orville, he's the keeper. So that parent and a couple of the students, showed. Now there's that pipe keeper over there, Orville. He's the one keeps that pipe. And here the students didn't believe it, and they said, it's not just in a, it's real. It's not just written in books, They thought it was just written in books, but
Sort of a
it's the
fairy
real
tale.
thing, yeah.
What did your grandparents teach you about the sacred pipeways?
One of the things is to respect it, because it's wakan, it's sacred. And they always say when something is sacred, we hold it in reverence. But there's a Lakota word for it. It means Oyate Pte or kokikpa. That doesn't mean that you're scared of it, but you hold whatever it is in high reverence, way up there. And so then that's what true meaning of that is with the chanupa. And I really do believe in the chanupa, because when we smoke the chanupa, and the smoke that comes out of it does go to the Great Spirit, or maybe we pray to the Eagle, to our intercessor, to help carry our prayers to Tonkashila, to the Great Spirit.
In the future, I see one Sundance coming, like it used to be. And according to books, what I read and researched, the last Sundance they had like in around Shadron, Nebraska, and how out of that whole 7 bands or 7 concert fires, only 7 were they were designated to dance. 7 individuals were picked to carry all the people's prayers into that Sundance. Just 7, and they were picked because I guess they had the heart and physical stamina that they could do to dance and take all the people's prayers in the middle pole. And the children and everything was all together at one time. They took them to the middle and they prayed.
Those are ways to strengthen ourselves in our social life. But the fluent Lakota language understanding and the sacred terms and sacred language is a part of that, and that brings the total understanding of our way, the Lakota way.
I grew up respecting our ceremonies and our pipe, but hardly anyone talked about the white buffalo calf woman who brought the pipe until I got older. And then when everything was put into books and stories and all this made public, because before that time it was like people are still underground with our ceremonies, and that's the reason why it wasn't told before that time until I think just recently, maybe in the late 70s was when people start talking about the white buffalo calf woman and the ceremonies that the chanupa that she brought us and the ceremonies that are connected to that.
I keep thinking to myself, one of these days I'm going to call a meeting in my house, and I'm going to, or in the back, and I'm going to ask all the gang members to come. And I want to feed them, and I want to ask them to tell what's going on in their lives and what they would like to do and what they would like to see for their kids, because it's going to be a sad day if they continue going the way they are and then their kids grow up like that. It's going to be horrible for our tribe.
I think the values are important, you know, and I see you have them written down here, you know. Waonshila, Woichi Tranka, Woktape, Woitike, Wachwala, Wachante Ogunauke, and Waioniha, okay, having respect. But
I teach Lakota values. One of the things, one of my mentors, elderlies, always remember that. Well, I had a lot of elderly mentors. One that, I especially remember this one man, he said, your first day in class, teach respect first. And when you do that, he said, you respect those children and they'll respect you back. And so I try to remember that, and I do remember, and it works.
It's really hard for the youth, and that's not saying all the youth, because we have some, you're an example. We have so many youth that aren't mentioned, that aren't good, and we fail to recognize those people and the youth who are doing good, and we're tending to constantly focus our attention on the bad.
our language plays an important part. We got to teach our children the language from home to kindergarten, maybe 3rd or 4th grade, and to just to them teach that language. And these have different meanings, and as far as their relationships are concerned.
Out of the values, you know, we always say 7. To me, the 4 important, the main values is respect, wa'ohula, generosity, wachantoganaka, and courage, wo'ohitika, and wisdom, woksape. And out of that, if we want to concentrate just on respect, we can web it out into maybe 1,000 words or 1,000 things.
That's real important to our children to learn and not to make mistakes like they're doing now, into drugs, alcohol, having babies, making babies. That's not the Indian way.
I need the elders to teach me. I go to some elders and I ask questions and they don't know, but I keep searching. I go to other reservations to learn from them, especially Pine Ridge. We go down there a lot, and they teach us a lot of things, ceremonies, the Tioshbai system, the values, the ceremonies, you know, something that I could pass on to my relatives. And
there's a concept on that. In Lakota language, Dakua Chinhe or Dakua Chinhu, in the case of a man. In the case of a woman, Dakua Chinhe. And it simply says, what do I want? You're supposed to answer that yourself relevant. If you give a relevant answer at the time you're asking that question, or maybe you're in high school, or later years, or in your maturity, each want will change. It might take a lifetime sometimes, but you'll find it, and it is yours. Henitha, that means it is yours. But it takes a lot of work to find what you want the most or the best for you.
Wakan tunka tunkashila trate dopa unchima kha mitaki api filamila chante lila wopila trachiste he ha le oyate washtela oyate otechika filamila le oyate ampetio ke oyak filamila wakanye je Winuchtela, Wichachtela, Hina wine couple, Hina Oyate he. Le Trachiste, Chanteste Hina Okua, Oyate Hina he. Pilamia, how Mitakias.
Like I said before, we can't go back. There's no way we can go back. And the only way and the only thing you can do now is get the best of what you can. It's almost like what Sitting Bull said, get the best and use it.
Those are ways to strengthen ourselves and in our social life. But the fluent Lakota language understanding and the sacred terms and sacred language is a part of that. And that brings the total understanding of our way. The Lakota way is the language, the prayers in language.
You retain your language and that's who you are.